I'm also grateful for the timeliness of this because with all the stay at home and the shelter in place, I've been feeling more called to find ways to work with kids in the classroom because it's like, I feel like it's imperative. I mean, I've always known that it's imperative to teach mindfulness and wellness and to get people singing and get people expressing. I mean, also, with the masks, like you spoke to, it creates this barrier for self-expression, but also, some of the kids, they can use it to hide. And in a lot of these instances, the kids, we're trying so hard to pull them in, to get their engagement, to get their participation. And this just puts an added barrier. Like, they can disappear and not be seen and not be heard. And, sometimes when kids are experiencing a lot of pressure, a lot of change, I mean, there's a higher rate of depression in children and teenagers than probably ever before. And so you put a mask on somebody who's already uncertain about where they fit and where they belong in society. And suddenly it's a recipe for, where did they go? And we don't want to lose anybody, especially kids. And
Yeah.
the Dalai Lama says that I think if we had something along these lines, that if we had taught every 8-year-old how to meditate, we'll have peace on earth by the time they're adults.
Mm.
So for me, more than ever, it feels really, really important to find ways to reach these kids because for me, I'm sitting at home and I don't even know how to reach the kids. Before I had contacts, I could go into schools and I could do things. And now I'm just really praying for how I can reach them with these tools.
Yeah, I often wondered how you found your way to the children because even though you headline certain events, I'll see your name for stage time, yoga time, and then also kids time. Like you're the only yogi or healer that does all three. So
Mm.
I never asked you that, but how did you find your way to working with kids?
Um, well, in California, I guess right from the get-go, well, when I was leaving New York just about 6 years ago, I recorded an album, Sing the World Awake. And my thought was that I was turning it into a kids music program. And the idea behind Sing the World Awake is that we're creating this group concert experience. And we're encouraging us to come from our hearts, to join our intention and our voices to create this experience, which is beyond an experience we could have as an individual. It's creating a vibration of our union. And it's like creating like a transformer where you have all these different parts that are coming together and suddenly they make up like this big transformer. Like, you're the hand, you're the head. And so to give kids the experience of what it feels like to really be part of something and to combine different vocal parts. And so when I first came to California, that was like the dream that I had in my heart. And so I just started telling people about it. And right away, I met somebody who knew the director of the Agape Children's Choir, and he connected me with her. So then I started working. I brought one of my songs, which all the songs are paired with mudras, hand positions to stimulate the energy meridians of the body. So I brought one of those songs to the Agape Children's Choir, and so we did that song, and we did more songs, and then the children sang for the Dalai Lama's 80th birthday. And somebody brought in a song for them to sing, but I choreographed that song with mudras. And since then, I feel like, I mean, I've had so many confirmations of just how kind of ordained this work is because I just keep meeting people who either I've connected with Zakaria, who had the Peace Guardians, and I worked with them for a while and then got into the festivals and um, met another woman who has a nonprofit mentorship program that works with kids in the inner cities. And I've had the blessing of making many just kind of random connections with people and gaining opportunity through that. But it's interesting when you have such a desire to like grow and create and to serve in this way, when I don't have a direct access point. I don't have a direct, access to a school district or something where I can just get in. Throughout my time here, I feel like Spirit has connected me with certain people, opened up doors for me. And so I just pray that with everything shut down, that I'm still able to work with the kids.
Yeah, I've been feeling, thank you for sharing that. I've been feeling like that too, because I can't imagine how much need there is now, especially with students who are in the juvenile system, the juvenile court system, or students who, just don't have even internet access. How are they coping? So I think that's such a great mission. And that's actually part of the reason why I feel like bringing wellness into the classrooms is important. When I do get into an admin role, that's what I want to create. I want to create a program that bridges the wellness community. California, and specifically the Los Angeles area, we're like a beacon. We just attract so much light here, and we have so many leaders in the wellness community and also the spiritual community. But there's just things about using the word spirituality in schools that are still a little bit taboo. So that's why I'm using the word wellness. But I definitely want to start using the word spirit wellness. Like, that's something that I think I can easily say and get away with it. But when you mentioned the mudra song, the mudras paired with the song that you did, um, can you tell me an example? Because part of this video interview is giving like a mini guideline of how to bring this into a classroom for teachers who eventually watch it. And
Mm.
and then eventually, we will want to expand on that and like learn more. So this is probably just like one of the first videos where I'm going to ask you for help or to your guidance. But that, I feel like that's something that is just so precious to know about the mudras. And sometimes people do them without even realizing that they're doing mudras.
Mhm.
So you did explain it to me one time, but I've totally forgotten. Can you tell me like an example of a mudra and how you would bring that in?
Yeah. And that reminds me that as part of, I did a program last year where I was bringing children's choirs to a school in the inner city. And I also created teacher resources, which were like a 5-minute instructional video with a 1-page description, which included intention and then what we're doing, the purpose behind it. And so with mudras, one song I can think of right away is Sing the World Awake, which is the name of the organization, which is, I just put out a children's book also, an illustrated
Oh,
children's book called Sing
yay.
the World Awake. And so this particular song is paired with a mudra healing sequence. And so it's a complicated sequence of 32 mudras that I've adapted for kids. And it's just paired with a really simple melody. And all of the songs will have like multiple parts, but they're just like little loops so the kids can go back and forth, and they're really easy to learn. So so I guess if I were to sing one, is that what you're asking?
Oh, yeah. Anything that would kind of help
Well,
someone.
I'd be happy to send you. What's
Yeah.
that?
Oh, yeah, that would be great if you could send me the link or the
And I
PDF.
can send you the teacher resource materials. I created these and I have just really not really known what to do with them.
Oh my
Um,
gosh. I'm so thankful for that. That would be awesome. Is there
Amazing.
a video and a PDF?
It's a video and just a 1-page PDF of how do you work with these songs and with these techniques. And there's things like a song for how to like make yourself feel better, a song for healing, for your emotions, for your body, for all kinds of things.
Yeah.
And so, for instance, this one song, Sing the World Awake, it just starts off with a simple melody and it's kukuma, 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 kuku, kukuma, 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 kuku, kukuma, 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 kuku. And so the idea is we kind of go through this whole little journey, and then at the end I ask the kids what they think that was. But this is a mudra. And then you combined the fingertips, and that's another mudra. Let's see how we can put this. And then you combine the back of the hands, and that's another mudra. And
Oh.
then moving it open, that's another mudra. And then open a little bit more. So these all work on different parts of the body. And then it goes to here. This mudra is for happiness. And it's the sequence when it's combined, and then you start to put all the fingertips together. This balances all the elements of the body.
Mm.
And so, this idea that we are composed of water, air, earth, fire, and ether in different Eastern traditions in Ayurveda and Chinese medicine, they understand that the energy meridians run through the hands. And all of those elements are representative in the fingers. So when we do a mudra like this, it's very balancing for the body. It's said in these schools of thought that all the imbalances, whether it's depression or whether it's anger or anything where we don't feel balanced in our body, it's due to the excess of one of these elements. So doing a mudra like this, it brings all the elements of the body back into balance. So like if we're worrying too much, we have an excess of air element. Air element is connected with the pointer finger. So one way to reduce the air element is just to bring the pointer finger down. That can reduce anxiety. Just something super simple.
Oh, I
And
already.
they can just hold it in their lap, and also touching the fingertips, because you're also touching that air element, it can help balance it out. So, and then we kind of do this little dance, and then we wear it as a hat.
Oh,
Um,
cute. That's
just
so
to make it a little bit more fun. And then we tap up the arms as part of the song. We tap down the inside of the arm. We switch sides. So the inside of the arm represents the yin meridian of the body, and the outside of the arm represents the yang meridian of the body. Our lymphatic system is contained in our skin. So when we tap, we're stimulating our lymphatic system. We're also opening the yin and the yang meridians of the body. So for kids, who are just sitting there in their chair all day and we're expecting them to pay attention, there are so many little micro movements. I call this micro yoga because it's not the big poses. It's just little things that you can do to open those energy meridians so you feel more alert and you feel more awake. And then another one is just with the fingertips, you tap the rib cage, all along the rib cage. So the seat of the electromagnetic field is located in the chest. Our electromagnetic field is, our heart is contained there. It's this place which sends out the beacon of our feelings, of our desires, of our hopes, of our dreams. So when this is stimulated, that's when we feel possibility. That's when we feel like we can do it. And that's also when our energy field expands, and that energy sends a signal out to our environment saying, yes, I am successful. And then the world corresponds to meet our belief in the understanding that like attracts like. If we're kind of hunched over, we feel like nobody cares about us, we think that it'll never work out, our dreams and visions, often people or situations come into our environment and reflect back to us that same feeling we have. So teaching kids these little techniques to expand their energy field, to expand their confidence, to expand their knowing that I am important, I make a difference. And then many of the songs that I bring into the classrooms, they have these repeated phrases. One different song, for instance, is I make a difference in this world. What I think, feel, and speak matter. And then we have like little different phrases that are really short, that are combined with a melody. And so the kids sing that again and again. We pair them with these techniques. And to the kids, I'm not explaining these techniques. We're just doing it. And
Oh,
they feel really good when they're doing it. it's
Okay.
nice for the teachers to know what they're doing, because when the teachers can learn the principle behind while we're tapping our chest, then they can, then correlate to other situations when suddenly, Bobby is sitting in the corner and he can't seem to, feel better about whatever's going on. Then the teacher might then pull that little tool that they learned from one of the songs and say, okay, hey, Bobby, let's tap our chest. Let's shake out our hands. That's a big one too, because all the energy meridians of the body are run through our hands. So when we shake out our hands, that stimulates those energy meridians of the body, and also the elements, and it changes our space. If we're just sitting still, we're working on something and we have like an emotional hit that comes, either it's an answer the kid doesn't know on a test, or somebody was teasing them. It's really hard to shift out of that mindset when we're still in a stagnant physical location. So these are little tools to help us to change our space without having to like exit the building. It's like, you know what, let me shake that off, literally. Um, Another one is tapping the head.
Mhm.
Just with the fingers, very gently, tapping all along the hairline. This stimulates blood flow to the brain. So before a test, this is a great thing to do, is just light tapping. Um, and and there's many more. So those are just, little examples.
You know, okay, so I just want to tell you thank you for like not watering that down because that was such good information, but you made it really easy to understand because when I've heard some of the terms like lymphatic systems and things like this, it didn't even matter because when you said it, I got it. And so thank you for
Mm.
being, still using terms that we can all understand, but keeping the integrity of the heart of them. And then when you told me about this, a lot of autistic students do this.
Hmm.
They,
Oh, I've seen that.
they call it flapping. And so there's two schools of thought that their therapists tell them to either stop flapping, they try to curb their flapping, they try to replace the flapping, or some therapists tell them to just earn breaks for their flapping. So trying to just help them find a
Oh.
way to do it so that they don't sort of alienate themselves from the class because a lot of the autistic students are sitting in typical peer classrooms where they might get teased or something like this if they're flapping the whole time. So just helping them learn how to hold it until they go outside and do it in private. But, you know, I never thought of it as like just them trying to change their state. Maybe there's something going on inside that they
It's a
can,
discharge of energy.
yeah, they're trying to.
I've had it too, where it's like I'll get so excited and it's like you have to
So
discharge your
good.
energy.
Yeah.
It's a natural thing, and it's not something that, I mean, I've even seen other adults, get to that point where they're really excited and they flap. It's a discharge of energy when so much energy builds up. So I'm not really sure if it's something that needs to be curbed. And
Exactly. Now I see a different point of view thanks to you.
hmm,
I love that. I mean, the students can't necessarily tell us that they need to get something out, so it's self-soothing as well.
completely self-soothing. I
Yeah.
mean, I remember when my son started crawling, sometimes he'd get really excited and he would shake his head. And I didn't understand that until later, but I just, in terms of the flapping, in terms of like head shaking, it's almost like there's so much energy moving through the body.
Mm,
And, in the yogic tradition, we understand that we have this Kundalini force that moves through.
yeah.
And some people, the Kundalini is more able to flow than others. And you see people, when the Kundalini is really moving, they're all over the place. I mean, I'm not sure. Potentially, there's more of this awareness and presence with the energy flow that's happening with some children. I mean, also there's the sensory, the kids who are more sensory sensitive.
Yeah,
Um,
totally.
and there's in also the work that I do, there's an energy healing technique called harmonium, which I find tremendously helpful with kids who have sensory sensitivities, who often they can't be touched, or, they just have a heightened sense of being on edge. And, just some soothing, like working with vibration. I think more and more we're starting to understand that vibration does exist. Obviously we know that everything is vibration. Trees and rocks and wind and mountain and, our emotions, everything is vibration. And so for the kids too, some kids have, just the way their system is set up, they're more sensitive to the way vibrations pass through. And hence, vibration can be used to calm that energy field, to calm a reaction when something is happening. Vibration in terms of breathing. We always say, okay, like let's breathe to calm down. Breathing is one way of using our vibration. Even having sound bowls in the classroom is another way. Kids love sound baths. It's just remarkable. They love just to lay down and or like turn off the lights, rest their head on the desk, and then hear these sound vibrations. It's so calming for them. And then also they can use the sound vibrations within their own body with certain what they call seed sounds. Seed sounds are certain healing sounds. For instance, like ma has the energy of water. So just ma, 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 that can calm anger. And if somebody's feeling a little bit lackluster and doesn't have so much energy, the seed sound ra, ra, like R-A. Ra, ra, ra. If they can roll their tongue, it makes it really fun for them even to try to roll their tongue in the Western culture. And that's energizing. And then there's mudras that you can pair for that. So for kids who are extra sensitive, there are things that can be done with vibration to help calm the field.
I'm totally going to use that. I never thought of bringing any type of sound bath instruments into the classroom. Just I brought, the harmonium, and I have a koto that I've brought in. But I think I am going to start to use that because a lot of the students, or all of the students in my classroom, currently they're users of wheelchairs, and they also are immobile in most of their bodies. So I think music is a big thing for them to change the energy for them because they're sort of holding their own energy and they can't necessarily affect the rest of the room how we usually can and express their joy or express their sadness. They can. I have one student who communicates through eye blinks because that's the only part that he can move.
Wow.
Um, so it's all about getting eye blinks from him. And so I have to keep the energy stimulated enough just for that to happen. So, the bowls are one thing I could bring in, but then I remembered that you also use the sound of trickling water sometimes, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Is
And
that
that's one of people's favorite sounds.
I it is one of my favorite sounds that you use when I'm closing my eyes. I don't know what it is, but it just brings my attention to a different place.
Mm. It's very relaxing for the nervous system. To bring in natural elements is very relaxing for the nervous system. And in terms of sound baths and sound healing, what we see is we see amazing things. We're living in LA. We see people with like, platinum crystal singing bowls, like amethyst, like the works, like massive planetary gongs, didgeridoos. We see people with crazy tools. And sound, the idea of sound as healing, it really stems from nature. Being in nature is healing. The sound of a running brook, the sound of birds singing, the sound of the wind blowing through the trees. And when our vibration is harmonized with the vibration of nature, that's when we have health in our body, health in our mind. That's when we feel connected to something beyond ourselves. I think a big sickness of the world right now that's being exacerbated with COVID is that there's this sickness of separation. People have always longed for connection to source, You think of these yogis and mystics going into the mountains and meditating. I mean, even drug abuse and addiction, that is a response to this feeling, this desire, this longing for connection that hasn't been met. So when you take natural sounds of just even the clicking of rocks,
Mhm.
water in a bowl. I mean, I usually have a sponge and I fill a bowl a little bit with water and I just pick the sponge up and down and squeeze it a little bit to make the sound of drops. And that's something it's so soothing and it's so relaxing. And even just simple bells. Sound healing doesn't have to be something elaborate. Also, I found all these driftwood sticks and I made like a mobile out of them. And so just to
Oh,
shake it and just to hear the sound of these driftwood sticks hitting together. I mean, and also this is the technology of this of sound journey used by native culture. The idea of sound journey where you just use a drum and you hit the drum. It does something to the brain. It brings you into an altered state. And so when you're working with these different elemental sounds, and you know the elements are, you have the earth, so you can click rocks together, you can have sticks, you can have little seed shakers or something that is just very kind of earthy and native. You have water, which could just be the sound of running water. You have wind, which could be whistling. Whistling is very soothing. You don't need this whole elaborate $10,000 setup. My friend once said, who's a sound healer, she's like, my sound healing setup costs as much as a car. I
my
mean,
gosh.
I mean, that's wonderful if you have the ability to do that, but you don't need that much in order to do that. And then you can get just simple Tibetan singing bowls or the metal singing bowls. And then a crystal singing bowl is the one like the quartz crystal or the clear crystal bowls. Um,
Oh,
and
it's on my list. It's on my back to school list because I am going to be teaching, like as we were talking about, online. I feel like these still translate across video. Some of,
Absolutely,
right? Like the most basic instruments are the ones that are translating easier
it's true.
over video, it sounds like.
It's true because when we went to this format of being online, I had to transition some of my sound healing clients to online. And I remember the first session, and I was so nervous because this one client in particular was so hesitant about even carrying her work onto online. She was so in love with in person. And so we do our session, and I just use those little sounds of water, of the flute, of my charango that I play. And at the end, she's like, "Oh, that was so powerful. I didn't miss anything."
Oh, that's beautiful.
So, especially online, sometimes if you have a lot of crystal bowls or a lot of gongs, that can overwhelm the microphones that we have through Zoom. But those simpler sounds are just as soothing and they really work.
So, you've talked, I feel like we've gotten a lot of the sound, but and that's very helpful for my students and especially special needs students. Um, but now I feel like I want to switch a little bit and talk about finding the voice, our
Mhm.
own instrument, right? Because at least middle school and high school, I think we start to stop singing in schools. It's, we sing maybe some patriotic songs and that's about it. So in a way we sort of lose our voice. We do, maybe even struggle to like raise your hand in front of the whole classroom. You're a little bit more shy or you're more aware of people judging you. Um, so I guess for teachers who are struggling with students who kind of get lost in the sauce and they don't necessarily even participate or contribute or find their voice valuable, like how would you how would you teach like a, I don't know, 10-minute session? Because I feel like it comes so naturally to you.
It's it's an interesting journey that we go through as human beings. because we start off as babies and we learn through the process of our mirror neurons, where we have this response of imitating what we see in our environment. That's how a baby smiles, because you smile at the baby and the baby smiles back at you. You
Mm.
sing to the baby sings back to you. So there's the first 7 years of life are when children are these open sponges. It's almost like they have this certain brainwave state, which is just their only wide open receptacles. So that's why it's so important what we do with kids in the first 7 years, because everything is imprinted onto them. They don't have the capacity, they don't have a filter, they don't have a boundary, they have nothing that says, no, that's not right for me. They're just tuning in, they're listening, they're observing, they're watching. So, if they're raised in these positive environments where people are singing, where people feel happy, where they feel comfortable, then they'll sing and they'll feel happy and comfortable. And still, every human being through their developmental course reaches a point where they have puberty. And puberty is also this time of self-differentiation. Initially, the baby is carried in the mother's womb for 9 months. And then the baby is born, but still the baby doesn't know it's anything different from its mother for a period of time. And as children grow throughout their development, in their developmental cycles and stages, they come to a point of differentiation where they're starting to understand that they are not their environment. They are not their parents. They're not the things that they've been told or what they've been fed. And this is a very natural, very important state. And this is where you find those teenagers and teenagers.
Yeah.
They're like, hold on a second, I'm my own person. But it's a very long journey in life, as we know, to find out who you are exactly as your own person. So, in that journey, there's some resistance. There's resistance to direction, to guidance, to suggestions of other people. In the school setting, it's kind of set up where the kids are still supposed to do what they're told. But, if you're working with music and you're working with literature, if you're working with the arts, you don't want to get the kid to perform just because you told them to. You're trying to elicit from them their own inspiration, their own investment. So I often find with little kids, I can just go into a room and I can be like, let's sing. And they're like, yeah, let's sing. And then we just start to sing. But that doesn't really happen with older kids. I find that the helpful bridge is to engage more body movement. How I shared these little kind of micro things. I have varying degrees of complexity with those movements. Probably to start off, I would have all the kids stand up and then just like go through this series of exercises kind of with the breath and with some sound, but with body movements as the emphasis point. And then once they start to get comfortable, release a bit of their inhibitions, then we can potentially start to go a little bit deeper with singing. And also I find I have this instrument, it's a charango, it's a Peruvian guitar, and it just has the sweetest sound. And when I play it, it's very soothing for the kids, even teenagers.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes if I just play something, then they're like, wow, what is that instrument? It's either with movement or bringing in something like an instrument that's like the bridge for connection. Because I find that when teaching singing or when helping people access their voice or just utilize their voice, there's this like intermediary that's needed, because it's like this first, kids kind of greet you with skepticism often at that age. It's like, who are you and what do you have to say, and do I really want to
Yes.
listen to you? So you have to kind of have an entry point where they'll even open up enough to the possibility of entertaining what you have to say.
I do. I totally agree. And you know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm glad that you could speak on it. As you were talking, this thought occurred to me because you were doing some of the mudras. And I was thinking, why do we raise our hand? Like, why is this the action that we use in classrooms? Like, who thought of that? Like, why isn't it like call on me. Like I
Hmm.
could totally see like a classroom that, where the bond is already has already happened, and it's not like a brand new teacher or anything. But like if you want me to call on you, put up your finger meridian or I forget what you called.
Yeah.
But that would even be like a cool way to introduce the mudra and not really even alienate the students to force them to do it in a different way, but just, have a more fun element of it.
And, even to that point, there's, something really powerful about belonging. And when kids feel a sense of belonging to their classroom, to their family, to their school, and creating like a language
Mm.
that is spoken in the classroom through certain hand gestures. I've seen that in a couple of different classrooms. It's like, gosh, there are like different signals. It's like if you have to go to the bathroom, you do this, or, there's like there's a language that's created. And so when the kids learn that language, then they have a sense of belonging. And it's that sense of belonging which we're really trying to cultivate with everything that we're doing. Um, Years ago, I was doing a course through Landmark, and in that course, I was focused on my kids' music program. And I was like really thinking about how I could grow it, how I could expand it, and also doing work on myself, uncovering my own limited beliefs and thinking. And the last day of the program, I woke up in the morning and I remembered when I was little feeling this great sense of belonging to my family,
Mm.
feeling how much I loved my mom and dad, and feeling that I belonged in that family. And then my brother was born, and my dad left, and all those things kind of, I didn't feel so much, especially when my dad left, I didn't feel like I belonged anymore. And I realized that I never felt like I belonged again.
Oh,
And what occurred to me during that time is why it's so important to create the space where kids can work together in cooperation. And for me, I do that with singing. But, whatever the space, when kids feel like they belong, then they're invested in making something better. And most of the problems that we're having in society is from people who are not invested in making it better. If anything, they're invested in tearing it down. And what happens, people become invested in tearing something down when they no longer feel they belong to it. And we're at this pivotal point in society right now where, you know, maybe some of the values that society is holding, don't sit well with us. So I feel like we're kind of in this struggle as the United States of America of even people feeling a sense of belonging to, to our country. And if we can dial it back to the family systems, of course, and keeping the family systems intact. I mean, even if there's divorce, but still working with the relationship aspect of the family systems. But the place we have more control over it is in school settings.
it really is. It really is, and that's why I feel like so called to this. It's not working. It where we've gotten to. It's 2020. It's just so obvious that the focus needs to change, or at least needs to include more, right? It needs to just be much more inclusive of all of the layers of us. Um, our skin tone, our inside tone, it needs to be all included now.
And the beautiful thing is that, there's so many expressions they say, like as within, so without, or, versions of that. And as we work on ourselves, when we meditate, when we feel harmonious and happy and balanced and integrated, we transmit that energy to the students that we're working with and to the people in our lives. And so for me, I've dedicated my life to a strong prayer practice and mantra practice. I have a Master of Social Work, a Master of Divinity. I started meditating when I was like 20, and I've meditated for my whole life. And I have a deep practice of connecting with the earth and with the elements. And so, what makes up a person is not just what they do, but it's who they are.
Yes.
And so when you dedicate your life and your practice to love, to connection, to oneness,
Mm.
and then you sing together with others, there's a magic that happens. And I feel like this is something that is missing. We're looking for it, but we're almost blind to it. And that's this awareness of the importance of our beingness, the importance of, just through the fact that we have breath, that we exist, that we're alive, that makes us valuable and important. And our culture so prizes doing. It so prizes output. It so values how much you can put into the system. I mean, that's what you get paid for. That's what you make your living with. That's how you get your accolades, your acknowledgement. That's how you build your careers, about how much you've done. But I feel like what society is screaming for as a whole is this recognition of just how much they matter. Not because you built this big bridge or you did this big project, because then if you're always measuring yourself against your accomplishments or comparing yourself to the accomplishments of others, then it's fail again and again and again. And this is something that we're trying to overcome, in our insides. I don't know, I'm sure for you as well, so many moments where I'm like, I failed. Like I failed, it didn't work. It didn't work the way I wanted. And this is something these sensitive children who are being born into the world at this time, I think they carry that very deeply. This sense of failure, or why even try? Why even bother? And, to teach these kind of, this deep sense of valuing, the sense of self-valuing, not because you did anything, but just because you exist. When suddenly you don't have to prove your existence,
Right.
then it creates a different relationship to the world. I read something once and it said something along the lines of that human beings are the only ones that have to pay to live on Earth. Like birds don't have to pay to live on Earth.
Wow.
Puppies don't have to pay to live on Earth. Rabbits don't. Like, we bought into this system where we have to cough it up in order to be able to exist. And we see the consequences if we don't do that. We see these neighborhoods and countries of such poverty, and that creates lack of opportunities. It creates resentment, it creates violence, it creates then trying to go against the mainstream to figure out how to do it. But when we can come back to this innate sense of valuing
Mm.
at a young age, it really has the capacity to transform the life that we then grow into.
I totally agree. I'm so glad that you brought that up, because what happens in most classrooms right now is students do their work, they come in and they put on their earbuds and they listen to their own music individually on their computers or their laptops as they do their work. And so, with that being said, what's like a mantra that you would kind of recommend that a teacher could sort of have everyone do before they tune out into their own singularity, just so that they could come into sort of a togetherness type of space?
Mm.
What is a mantra that a teacher could easily have them sing or chant um, with just a short moment before they retreat? It's almost like they retreat back into their rooms as teenagers do, which is fine.
Mm.
We need both, but let's come together first and be there so that we can teach them how to balance both, and then also learn that both are helpful for them as they grow older. And so that we acknowledge, okay, this is my neighbor, this is my friend, this is my brother, this is my sister, but still have the path of their own purpose.
Mm-hmm. That's just making me think of a question. Well, so
Yeah, please. I'm glad that you thought of something.
so really harmonizing the field of the group is it can be done with any sound. If you breathe together in sync, if you sound together in sync, something as simple as om,
Yeah.
if everybody just comes together and they om, but for
But
a certain period of time. Thank you. And that's what I wanted to look up. So that was the note that I made to myself, is how long do people really need to vibrate together before they come entrained? So
mm,
there's something about the entrainment of vibration. And I noticed that with breath work, if we just breathe together for 3 minutes, it gets everybody in sync. And so it's, if I would probably, one breathing exercise that I like that's fun with kids, their lungs aren't necessarily fully developed. So you can't do a lot of breath work with kids per se, except just like encourage them to do long, deep breathing. But um, blowing out through the mouth and pushing, like, so you're pushing to the side, the front, and the side. And I'll tell them, okay, we're creating this beautiful ball of light, and then we're pushing it out, and we're pushing it out, and so this is something that they can do for like a minute.
yeah.
What happens when they're turning their body in the different directions is they're crossing the midline of the body. When you cross the midline of the body, you harmonize the hemispheres of the brain. And like when a baby learns to crawl, crawling is moving the hands in front of each other is such an important step in brain development. So when you're working with any kind of breath or any kind of exercise where you're turning from side to side, you are breaking up habitual thought patterns. So it can really help the kids drop into the moment just by doing something where they're doing something connected with a twist. So if you did something connected with a twist for like a minute to 3 minutes, depending on how you intuitively felt they could handle it,
Yeah.
younger kids are a shorter time span than older kids. And then um, just doing om or you, hu, hu, some of these like pretty simple sounds. Um, and I always find it fun to add some layers. So if you had one half of the room singing om, 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 and you have the other half singing om, 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 om,
Uh,
om, 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 and then you switch them, and then like
uh,
om, om, because when you have multiple parts happening at once, it makes them think and pay attention, and it creates an engagement.
yeah.
And then you could even invite somebody up to like do something more elaborate. So if somebody's doing om and then somebody's doing om, 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 somebody else could be doing om, or you can just like have a kind of
Yeah.
space for improvisation as they feel more comfortable, and and just making it fun. So doing like a few minutes of sound vibration, and of course there's mantras. There's mantras for um, for putting things in the right place at the right time. There's mantras.
What's a short, good, easy English mantra that you've seen, received well with students?
I am.
Oh,
It's really the easiest,
I
best.
love that.
It's just, that's where in the Bible, the name of God, when Moses saw the burning bush, God's, he said, "What's your name?" And he said, "I am that I am,"
Wow.
in a deeper sense, but also just I am. All the time somebody says, "Hey, who are you?" And they're like, "I am, Karen," or, they're always having these identification points with I am. And that's also the point where they start to understand difference. Because if I am this, I am me, but I am not you. So suddenly there's this rift. But just chanting I am, I find, what it's done for me, the more I chant it, is the more I start to see that I am everything. And
Mm.
in one song that I have, we have this motion, and it's I am, 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 I am. So the words, the whole words are I am love, I am wise, I am kind, I am good. And then it's I am, I am, I am, I am. And then I am, I am, I am, I am. So without a lot of the work that I do, it's without explanation, but with gesture that hopefully they'll have a moment of experience for themselves. And it's in those moments of experience and creating the space for them to have that moment of a click, like, ah. Like one time with a classroom, I did this mantra, very complicated mantra. I just had them repeat after me, and it's triple mantra. It's a mantra for protection. And the words are, so we did it repeat after me. We broke it down. So it's Ad Gurena Me, Jugad Gurena Me, Sat Gurena Me, Siddhi Guru Devena Me, Ad Sach Jugad Sach, Hebi Sach, Ananagosi Be Sach, Ad Sach Jugad Sach, Hebi Sach, Ananagosi Be Sach. I did that with 7-year-olds. We
Wow.
did repeat after me in little blocks, and we did it 3 times. And afterwards, at the end of the class, I asked people, I always ask, like, what's your favorite part? What did you like the most? And a couple kids were like, my favorite part was when we did those magic words in the beginning. I felt, and all I said was, it was just a way to get started. I was like, okay, repeat after me. And we like moved a little bit when we did it. And one kid said, I feel like that's something that I could have my mom play in the car while she's driving because, she just had a couple car accidents and I feel like that would protect her. That
Oh,
was a mantra for protection. I didn't tell them the breakdown of it, but they just intuited it. So, often just creating the space where kids can have their own experience is really powerful.
mm, wow. Kids are they know so much more than they think they even know.
Right.
I Before we go, like I just wanted to ask you because I noticed that when you do something with your voice, you also pair it with your hands or a body movement. Why is that? Why does that seem like it? Because it does feel good, but I just don't understand why.
There is, there's a correlation between the different parts of ourselves. There's a Swami who has a foundation in Santa Barbara, and they have an ashram in India where they teach this system, what they call whole brain learning. And they've understood that there is a correspondence between our body movements and the repetitions we're doing with words. So they'll teach these kids like super complex Sanskrit, and how they'll do it is they'll have them say it while moving their body in a particular way. And it reinforces the memory of the body. So,
Okay.
you can pair something. You might think of like, did you ever put like some educational concepts to music? There's people who've like
Yeah.
written songs about like
Head,
the Declaration.
knees and
Yeah,
toes, knees and
yeah.
toes, like yeah.
So there are something about it helps it cement that much more into the brain. And in terms of yogic teaching, there are 3 planes. There's the physical plane, there's the emotional plane, and there's the mental plane. And so when you work with sound vibration, you are working on the physical plane. And when you work with your hands, you're working on the emotional plane. And when you work with your mind, like if you then say I was saying om, 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 and then I stop and I think om, but I'm just thinking it in my head. So I've worked on the physical plane with my om, and I've worked on the mental plane with my silent om. And in the midst of that, I have my hand gestures. So if I am working on a mantra for manifestation and I'm chanting this, say I'm chanting Guru Guru Wahi Guru Guru Ram Das Guru, and then I'm putting my hands in a mudra, I'm reinforcing it on the different planes of existence, the physical plane, the emotional plane. And people talk a lot about manifestation and creation and visualization. It's like, oh, if you want something, make a vision board or imagine it in your mind. But the kind of key ingredient is our feelings, our emotions. That's the substance out of which everything's created. That's like the carrier agent of our dreams and wishes. So when we can work not just on that dry, detached level where we're just doing it or we're just saying it, but we put our emotions, we put our heart into it, then it's that much more potent, to be heard and to be received and carried throughout all planes of existence.
Gosh, now I'm so in love with all of these techniques. I love hearing them from you, Karen. You're the best. You know you're the best.
You're so sweet.
I just have to tell you it. So much knowledge comes from your brain. It's all the mantra and all of the poses. That's why, because you're able to hold everything with your muscle memory and your brain memory.
It's really interesting because I remember starting a few years ago, I would go to a lecture, I would go to a talk, and then somebody would ask me about it, and I could tell them about it, almost word for word in some cases. And they would sometimes ask me if I was reading about it, like if I was reading my response to them, and I'd say, no, I'm looking at it. And I started to realize that, well, and actually, I wrote a book. I released it
Oh,
in
good.
2017. It's called The Awakening World, The Return of the Divine Feminine.
You
And
wrote that in 2017.
yeah, I put it out in 2017, but the information I started gathering in 2013 when I started praying for the earth.
Hmm.
In the morning, I would connect with the sun and I would send energy and love to the earth. And after a few weeks, I started getting a lot of downloads, a lot of messages. And what I was shown during that time was that all information from all time is contained in the energetic field of the planet and in our energetic field. And all we have to do is connect. And, when I was getting this information, I had no validation point. I had no source verification other than this was just the information being given to me. But now there's a lot of information out there with quantum physics, with Nassim Haramein, with Bruce Lipton, with Greg Braden. There's so much research and evidence coming to light that this awareness is true. And, we live in this environment, this matrix of energy where information is contained. So the more we shift our vibration, the more we work with connecting to the earth, connecting with the cosmos, the more we get the energy moving through the meridians of the body, the more open we are to receiving the messages. And also that's why it's so important to get outside in nature, because when we're inside, we're inside this box that's protects us from the elements, but also protects us from the elements, protects us from that harmonizing vibration we get from being around the trees or with our feet in contact with the earth. And so when you say that, my brain whatever is that I feel that through the more I've done these practices, the more I have been able to tune in to the wisdom that's contained. Like I might have heard it at one time, but it doesn't really feel like my brain is holding on to it. It's
Mm,
almost like there's another way of learning.
mm.
That's like I can connect with the energy of that thing, and then it's there's more of a richness and a vastness. So it's not just like I'm memorizing something through text or that I read or something like that. It's that I'm opening to it existing in a certain plane of reality. And I don't know if we want to put that in there. I have to find the scientific jargon to talk about that better because I know there is some.
Oh, well, I totally understand. I didn't get to introduce you because we were having such a like organic flow of the conversation, but maybe well, I know your Instagram is Karen Seva Music,
My
right?
Instagram is just Karen_Seva.
Oh, okay, just Karen at underscore Seva.
Yeah,
Okay.
Karen_Seva for my
Okay.
Instagram.
And then I think it would be really cool to close out with how you came to your name, Karen Seva. I love that story.
Well, years ago, I was in a life coach training course, and I was also going through a very big transition in my life. I was married, my marriage was falling apart, and I had been doing a meditation practice for 11 years, and it just felt like I was at this pivotal turning point and everything was changing, and I wasn't really sure what was coming next, or what I needed to kind of hang on to. Everything felt so uncertain, kind of like now. And in one of my weekends of life coach training, we did a guided visualization, and the visualization was to meet our future self. And in this visualization, I remember meeting this beautiful light being, and she was just so magnificent. And I asked her, among other things, what her name was, and she spelled Seva across the sky, Seva. And it resonated so deeply for me because I knew that in Sanskrit, seva meant divine service. And it was my reference point. It was that if I stay in service, that I'll always land on my feet. And even though I don't know what's to come and I don't know if I'm making the right choice, if I stay in surrender and I stay in service, then I know that it'll turn out all right. And so I started using Seva for music, just straight Seva. And actually, I've just come back to that. I released a new song in the beginning of June called Masterpiece, and I put it out as Seva. Because for me, Seva was always more than just this person, this personal identity. Seva is this energy of divine service to one another. And this call for all of us as humanity to remember that we are each other, and that there's this grand awakening that's happening, this beautiful, magnificent event that we connect into when we step into that energy of giving, that energy of love, that energy of understanding that the more I honor you, the more I'm honored. That it's not just about how much I can get, but it's truly about how much I can, from my heart, give and express and share my voice and share my passion and share my love, because everything I'm giving out to you is what I'm giving to myself.
Yes. Oh, that's why whenever I talk about you, they say, "Oh, she's an angel. Oh, she's an angel on earth." That, oh, the goddess. That's literally what people say
Wow.
when I mention your name in many,
Oh,
many places. So thank you,
wow.
Karen Seva. I'm gonna press stop, but I still want to talk, so just hold on one
Okay.
minute.